Hi and welcome to the Solidari-Tea podcast, shedding light and spilling the tea on global solidarity. My name's Emina and I'm the campaign coordinator for the Case for Global Solidarity campaign, funded by the FCDO. We're talking about a short series of discussions around key themes, so please look out for others in this series. Enjoy! Welcome to this episode of Solidari-Tea. This time it's with SSAP Youth, and our theme is global solidarity and social networks. How do we platform young Black voices and sustain solidarity in a post-pandemic world? Now I have two very important guests with me. I've got Billy and I've got Ophelia. Do you mind introducing yourselves both?
Yes, so my name is Billy and I am the Youth Leadership Officer and Coordinator of SSAP Youth. I'm also a social justice activist in my spare time.
Hi, I'm Ophelia. I'm a textile designer and climate justice activist, and I work for SSAP as a project producer.
Thank you so much, both. Okay, so the reason that we're here actually is because of the research that Hub Cymru Africa commissioned, which is all about Wales and its attitude towards global poverty and solidarity. And we found that Wales is a more caring nation than the rest of the UK in the data, which we think obviously is a kind of great discovery. And I just wanted to know, from both of your perspectives, do you think this is an accurate reflection?
Well, I think it's an accurate reflection in terms of the people I've come across in Wales in comparison to other places. In terms of more caring, friendlier, just the culture of saying hello and hi to your neighbor, and just the fact that wherever you go, you do feel as though everyone is really friendly here, and it's much more accepting and open and self-aware when it comes to tolerance and race and those sorts of discussions, particularly with things such as the Race Equality Action Plan and, the Black History curriculum. I think those just highlight how welcoming and friendly Wales is as a country, that it's able to make those accommodations for minority communities and have a look at their history.
I would just echo that. I've always felt that Wales has been friendlier, more engaging kind of population. You might have found that this when you were leaving for university, and then you stay elsewhere, and you're like, oh, not everyone says, thanks to the bus driver and all of that. So yeah, I would just echo what Billy said. And even the fact that Welsh Government implemented the Future Generations Plan in 2015, I think it was.
Yeah.
I think that really shows our compassion for each other and also for future generations. So yeah, I would agree with the findings.
Can you both explain to me more about the work of SSAP and what you do individually?
Yeah, so I just begin by saying SSAP itself is sort of the umbrella for SSAP Youth. I'll talk a little about SSAP Youth in a second, but SSAP is sort of an organization that brings together diaspora communities, particularly from the African diaspora in Wales, and tries to sort of equip them, develop them, support them in a variety of different ways. So it could be projects, it could be events, it could be just funding for individual pieces and creative works of art. And I think as an organization, SSAP collaborates a lot. Recently, they collaborated with the museum to work on reframing Picton, which was just a study on how we interpret and look at history, looking at history from a more broad and honest perspective rather than a narrative that's often told by those that are perceived to be, the winners of history. So that's sort of the most recent work that SSAP have done. But SSAP is an organization, I don't know, Ophelia, but it's a very collaborative organization but with a real focus on community and development, particularly the African community in Wales.
Yeah, definitely. So within my role at SSAP, I actually kind of produce and coordinate a project that's funded by the Arts Council, and it's called Majaraja, which means bridges in Swahili. And we have commissioned 15 artists from across Wales and Africa to explore kind of cultural bridges between Wales and Africa. This could be through heritage, community, identity, and that's what we're working on at the moment. And it's a really exciting kind of project to be a part of. And I think it can be kind of seen as something that SSAP is like, this, this is what we are. Like, it very, very nicely encapsulates like who we are as a organisation.
I mean, this work sounds extremely interesting. I actually visited the Thomas Picton Reimagined, and it was kind of amazing to see that, and also to see it in the National Museum of Wales, which I think goes to show that actually Wales does take history seriously and is trying to sort of re-navigate the future. And I just wondered if you both thought that Wales is kind of unique in its in the way that it looks outwardly to its future, but also kind of recognises its past. I mean, Cardiff wouldn't be Cardiff, where we are now, without sort of migrant communities.
Yes. And
do you think Wales has got unique opportunities for diaspora people?
Yeah, definitely. So with my heritage, for example, I have family that lived in Byd-eang back in the 1920s. And my great-great-grandparents came from Cape Verde on the west coast of Africa, and they came over to kind of find this new lives for themselves. And at the time, Cardiff Tiger Bay, as it was once known, was a kind of a global hub for trade. And I think today we still recognise that. It's not forgotten just because the world has become as globalised in a way, and things are more like London-centred. I think we always carry that history and that story within our everyday lives. Yeah, that's what I would say.
I'd also say that it's very visible, particularly in, obviously it was called Tiger Bay, but now it's Byd-eang, isn't it? But it's very visible when you go down there that it is a diverse community. It's a community with lots of heritage, and I think you only have to look at the murals that are around the area. You only have to look at the shops and the people that you speak to, and you just understand just how, even the schools, you walk by, the schools in and around, Byd-eang, and you just see how diverse, the children playing on the playground are. And it encourages you just to know that Wales as a society and Cardiff as a city is actually very, diverse and very open to self-reflection. Of course, outwardly, it wants to be anti-racist, but inwardly as well, it is open to acknowledging its racist sort of role within history with things like, Sir Thomas Picton and the colonial slave trades and things. So I think it is very, it's very unique and nuanced as a country in comparison to other home nations.
So I think we can all agree over the past 2 years, it's been a very strange time, a very strange world to live in. And I feel the way that we have tried to connect with other people has been quite important.
Yeah.
And I would say that a lot of that has been digitally, and that certainly became my sort of beacon to the outside world when that felt quite closed in. And I just wondered, during that time, how did you use social networks to stay connected, and did you still feel part of your community?
I think you only sort of had social networks, really. You were locked in for a lot of these previous 2 years that we've had. So you were left alone a lot, but you also had communities online that you had to engage with. But I do think that it was obviously important to have to have that interaction online, because it gives you a voice, then it opens you up to different communities and to different conversations that are happening. But I really do think that, the 2 years have definitely broadened everyone's sort of perception on community and engagement and social interaction. I think everyone appreciates that a lot more now, coming out of, a global pandemic where we were in lockdown for months on end.
Yeah, I think as well we've really understood that communities can be borderless. We don't have to have just physical communities. And I will admit I was quite kind of skeptical, maybe pre-pandemic, of social media. I was always like, it's just waste your time. It's just, endless scrolling. And then when lockdown happened, I think I was forced to use social medias a lot more. And then that's where I found communities in activism, more artistic friends. And I didn't recognize that straight away. I think as well, I was a bit ignorant to the fact that I lived in Cardiff and I thought that I had to be in London. So I didn't really reach out to any kind of Welsh creatives, Welsh activists, for example. So that time inside, for me, it kind of allowed me to explore that part of my identity in a way.
Yeah, and I also do think the interesting thing with social media is I think, as you also mentioned previously, with it being borderless, you're able to meet different communities, and you also come across communities that are local to yourself, which was really encouraging, I think, with a lot of, movements that were happening. It wasn't just happening in, for example, America or in London. It was also happening in Wales, in Cardiff, in Newport and Swansea, in different places across Wales, which was really encouraging that social media brought that to light.
During the pandemic, I kind of see some of the events during that as completely life-changing.
Absolutely.
People mobilised around social justice issues. I think Black Lives Matter obviously came into its own. It was a time when we were all forced to stand still and actually confront things. And there seemed to be sort of a greater urgency for change. That it felt there was a turning point where people weren't just talking, they were thinking, what can I do? What is the action around this? Do you think how people use social networks has changed since then?
I think during the pandemic, it was definitely, we could visibly see organizations, companies, individuals showing solidarity. We could see global solidarity across the world with protests and with implementations and policies and things. It was definitely, you could see practical solidarity. I think the difficulty for people over the previous 2 years has been distinguishing, the solidarity shown with the movement and with performatism in the moment. So there's this distinguishing the moment and the movement. I think it's very difficult for people to understand that the movement is a constant motion. Okay, you don't stop thinking, you don't stop being an ally, you don't stop, helping and fighting racism wherever you see it in everyday life. Whereas in the moment, everyone thought in that moment they had to post a black square. They thought they had to repost Black Lives Matter and offer. I think I saw some companies offering discounts with Black Lives Matter as sort of the discount code, which was just capitalism masked as capitalism masked as solidarity, which is just tragic, to be quite honest with you. But I think for people, it's distinguishing the difference between a movement and a moment, and understanding that to be in that movement, to say that you are showing solidarity, to say that you're an ally, you have to be constantly moving in constant motion towards equality and justice, not just in the moment, not just posting and reposting, but genuinely being part of that movement, walking, protesting, speaking. And that's sort of the difference, I would say, that the 2 years has shown me, is that a lot of people couldn't distinguish the two.
I think in the past 2 years, the way we communicate ideas, plans, and creativity has completely changed. And with my work in environmentalism, I've really found my way of communicating really complicated language, for example, into small, bite-sized, media, like social media posts. For example, like Reels, TikTok has obviously taken off over this time. And that just shows how the way we communicate and the way we spread kind of messages of hope and kind of information has completely changed. And, not all problems and, social issues can be solved with posts and like really, cute graphics about really horrible things and statistics. It's not gonna exactly change things, but I hope that opens the conversation to more nuanced research and it kind of sparks people's interest in, environmentalism or social justice. And I hope people kind of make the kind of links and connect the dots within that. So, why does environmentalism matter to social justice and racial justice? But I think, it really has unlocked that kind of creativity in people, and especially like young creatives who have become so in tune with how these platforms work. Sometimes, even as a 24-year-old, I think I can't do TikTok.
It's a huge platform, isn't it? TikTok. It's a massive platform.
You can't really talk about 2020 unless you talk about TikTok.
The rise of TikTok, the challenges and things.
Yeah, I've been doing some research on it. It's quite scary, but I won't get into that.
I think something I've noticed over the past 2 years is just how much content there is. It's just, I sometimes feel completely bombarded, overwhelmed. I feel quite privileged to say that sometimes I disengage just because there's just so much, almost like I can't open an app without being told something. And I just kind of wondered how you both sort of cut through the noise, like how there's so much content out there, and it's absolutely I reckon there's parts of it that are very educational, and I've definitely learned a lot, but some of it sometimes feels, as you were saying, like performative, or I'm not sure that we all enjoy being told off all of the time.
It's not a good way to engage people. But I would say I'm quite ruthless online. Like, my friends are like, why have you unfollowed this person? I'm just like, it's too much information for me. I keep my following low so I can just have what I need. It's more like I need to get some kind of inspiration. I need to get, it needs to be someone that I really care about. I've spoken to in the last year. I don't want to overload my brain with like a million different things. And it's actually quite scary because we see around like over 10,000 adverts per day or something ridiculous like that.
That's crazy.
Just coming across digitally, like it's really interesting to see how we all have better ideas of what the algorithm is now, and maybe we didn't think about that beforehand, and we kind of, it leads us to think about where our information has come from. It's so I know I'm guilty of this as well, but like it's easy to believe anything that is on the internet because it's on the internet. You'll see a picture, you'll see a statistic, and you'll be like, oh my god, there's only 3 elephants left in the world. People just need to be wary of what they're consuming because the algorithm can lead you into all sorts of things. And if you're especially if you're looking into race issues, you can really go down the rabbit hole and end up somewhere you don't want to be. But generally, I think it's been quite positive.
Yeah, I think it's completely down to how you navigate social media. I think the same thing I do is what Ophelia also does. So I'd echo a lot of what Ophelia does. I sort of unfollow what I don't need to see, or I mute. I utilize that mute button is a godsend. God bless the mute button. It's amazing because, of course, you have to be careful with the information that you take in. Google something, find out, the source. And just don't be so quick to believe things,
Pick up a book as well, not just believing your timeline.
Pick up a book because you'd be surprised how much information is, not only just on the internet, but in books, in everyday life, with speaking to people as well, saying, I saw this online. Is this true? It, makes things a lot easier and also limits, your gullibility for things such as fake news. I think fake news was one of the things that, the words of the pandemic, fake news. So just being cautious of things and making sure that you really take time before you just take things in. So take time before taking it in.
I think something else I noticed as well, which actually changed my mind, was kind of cancel culture. I've had to do a lot of unlearning and relearning myself, especially when it comes to matters of like racial justice, being a feminist, for example. And I think I've been quick in the past to dismiss people for getting something wrong, but I think that we should educate ourselves every day. And part of doing that is you're going to make mistakes and you're going to have to challenge yourself. And I just wondered what you both thought of cancel culture.
Cancel culture is an interesting one because for me, I strongly believe in forgiveness and giving people, an opportunity to learn at least, or show that they've learned something. But at the same time, it's such a tightrope, because there's also that element of, free speech. Everyone deserves free speech. There's also that free speech. But, what are you using your free speech for? Is it for hate? Is it to cause, people to feel upset or neglected, or to feel as though they've been sort of discriminated against? But then there's also that aspect of, how do you educate? It shouldn't be up to the oppressed to constantly have to educate the oppressor. I don't want to educate every single racist about why racism is bad. I don't believe that's my job. If there is a way to explain something to you and you still are adamant and stubborn that you do not want to learn, or do not want to hear the voices of those that are being oppressed, why should we have you on this platform? Why should we give you a space to continue to spout hate when we're presenting truth, facts, experiences, and history? So it's a tightrope, but I do think that it shouldn't be down to those who are being sort of oppressed to constantly have to educate. And if you offend someone and they feel offended, they should have a right to cancel you if they want. That's what I think.
I think the problem with cancel culture is that it's so quick and so it's so reactive. And, as the algorithm goes, it kind of feeds off kind of really quick kind of outrage and negativity. Those things do well. I think when I thought about cancel culture, I've kind of told myself that, people learn, people make mistakes. Again, there is definitely the tightrope that you're talking about. There's a line where someone, that's not just a spontaneous thought, that is something, that is who you are, to be be racist or homophobic. Yeah, it's an interesting conversation. I think it's one that we all need to have. I think it's in like 2 years' time, Trump may be allowed back on Facebook. So Mark Zuckerberg needs to make that decision. And I think when we have those that will be quite a important decision, because I think that will really set a boundary for free speech. If they do let him back on Facebook, I imagine other social media companies would also let him back on, and then that's where we know where they stand, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you've also got what's his name, the Tesla guy that's saying he's bought Twitter, or he wants to buy Twitter. I don't know what his views are, but I've seen a lot of controversy from what he posts. If that's the person that's going to be owning your social media platforms, I don't know what kind of chaos would ensue, with that sort of leadership. It's very messy. I think cancel culture. It's very, very messy.
It's a lot to think about. And I think another kind of topic that is also quite relevant to cancel culture is the kind of worshipping of celebrities.
Stan culture.
And, stan culture, where it's like, whatever this person says is correct. But that's interesting as well.
For sure. I think that's maybe one of the downsides of social media as well, is the immediacy to things. People decide very quickly what's right and what's wrong. It's like a public jury, isn't it? And I think without that step back and that reflection, sometimes I think things go a little bit awry. do you think it's easier than ever for young black voices to be platformed in Wales?
Oh, absolutely. I think so. I think social media gives you that control. It gives you a platform, of course. So absolutely, I think definitely you're able to use social media to share your experiences, your story. You have multiple narratives now that are being told, often uses similar issues. Police brutality, for example, I think is a major one that's happening in Wales, and there's multiple, people voicing their concerns and their disappointment with the way, in Wales, some situations, some cases are being treated. So I think social media definitely gives a platform for young black voices. But it also opens up a platform for young black voices to also be, further harassed and targeted and receive hate because of their experiences, because of what they've been through, because of what they want to share. They also receive a lot of, trolling and hating. So it's something that is good because it gives you that platform, but it also does not let you know that, with this platform you will get a lot of hate. You will get racist messages. You will get, discriminatory messages, misogynistic messages. All these different types of hate and discriminations will come towards you because of the platform you now have, which is unfortunate. But I think it's difficult, but you have to not let anything stop you from sharing your voice online, because you do have a platform, and the best thing to do is use it.
In the real world, we are like, Black Lives Matter. We want to hear more black voices and we want to amplify them. But the reality is, especially with technology, we don't get to decide kind of who is platformed or who gets to be shown, or what kind of impact that person can make. And unfortunately, the algorithm is racist in a way, because it does suppress some things and it does highlight other things, and it is kind of driven by, money and data and all of that stuff. But I think it's a hard one. Again, with like racism online, I think that is a huge problem that the Welsh Government are going to face, because it is so hard to govern the internet. Like, it's near impossible. So I don't know how any of that's going to change. Yeah, it's crazy how, it's Silicon Valley that are making decisions, so far away, and we don't really think about who's in those boardrooms and, what the diversity of those people are with, generally white men, isn't it? They're going to miss things. Not intentionally all the time, but like it's definitely there. And even with like black influencers, for example, they don't get paid as much as white influencers. And it's the same on TikTok, I think, as well. The top, TikTokers are all white.
Just because, you have that platform, it doesn't mean that, you have the social currency to even be able to get your point across or to be listened to. And of course, black people are not a monolith, as are, all other ethnic minority groups as well. They're not all a monolith. They have different perspectives and views. So you might have a black person that has a platform who is extremely right-wing and racist and like completely the opposite of what you would maybe consider as somebody that represents you in with the amount of social currency that they may have. So it is, I am skeptical, I guess, too, but I'd rather have a platform than not have one.
Yeah, I think that's the important takeaway.
So can you both tell me about some young black voices in Wales that you follow on social media and kind of what they mean to you?
I really enjoy content by the queer activist and poet Talk to Coco. She is a mental health activist, and she uses content to kind of spotlight different signposted different charities, and she's very vulnerable online, and I think that's what draws a lot of people to her. I'm lucky enough to work with her through SSAP, and I just think like her work is like so amazing. She gives a lot of inspirational kind of content, which sometimes you might think of like quote posts or tiles on Instagram to be a bit cheesy, but I'm like, sometimes I just need that. I need someone to be like, you've got this today kind of thing. So that would be my first thought when it comes to content creators, Welsh creators online.
I have, I couldn't pick one, so I've got two. I've got a singer, songwriter, who I think is incredible and doesn't get, his flowers. And then I've also got an up-and-coming videographer, so he's a bit of a creative. So the singer-songwriter, his name is Blankface. Amazing singer-songwriter. I think his music is really sort of nice and easy to listen to. And then there's also a photographer, videographer who goes by the name of Pierre. Very young, very up-and-coming. He has his own company called Stilo Vision, which sort of records videos and films and different creative, he captures everything really. Somebody that I think we all need to look out for, and the work that he has done, especially with the BLM marches that happened, with the reggae festival that happened in Newport as well, Reframing Picton. He's done so much work, and a lot of it is underappreciated, but it's work that you definitely would have seen and come across. So I think those two people are, people that I'd love to shine a light on the things that they do, the work that they do.
So Billy, when we were preparing for this podcast, we were also talking about the survey that you did with your youth members, and I wondered if you could just talk me through what you found out, really.
Yeah, so we recently sent out a survey at SSAP, just understanding really what issues most affected our members. And I think a recurring theme was, of course, the cost of living, as well as having a platform and receiving support for voices, receiving support for their voices and thoughts. So it's definitely something that at SSAP we're looking to do more of, offering maybe its financial tips and advice on the current cost of living crisis, making young people aware of what support and funding for projects are available for their creative fields, as well as just being there really for people that may be finding it quite tough. So just ensuring that mental health is a priority, and ensuring that, those that are struggling, those that just want perhaps somebody to talk to about what they're struggling with, is something that we're going to be looking more at. But the survey results definitely highlighted a need for us to look at, providing and equipping young people with more financial management, as well as general support.
Do you have any advice around that?
Yeah, like you said, be more mindful of what you buy. And I think you'll find a lot of happiness in buying things that you really love. And even like I said, invest in your friends' businesses, invest in Black-owned businesses, and it will feel so much better than spending money at like Boohoo or like Pretty Little Thing. And I think it also helps you kind of identify your own style outside of kind of the generic, mainstream kind of trends that we see. Like, there's a new season or new collection near enough every day online of some fast fashion brand, for example. Buy secondhand. Secondhand is really good. And I think it's around, changing that stigma of like, you don't have to have everything brand new. You can buy refurbished, Nintendos and all sorts of stuff. I've been looking.
Well, I think I've learned a lot during this episode. Thank you both very much for your contribution. And if anyone's got any questions regarding funding, if you're a young Black creative, it's get in touch with SSAP, I imagine.
Yes.
Yep. Come to us.
Come to us. We've got the money.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.